are they a homogenous race of people? Right? Are they a homogenous race of people? And the answer is no. Everyone said the Japanese are a homogenous race. Now we could say they are a homogenous ethnic group. Right? They kept their identity pure in a sense, in the sense that, yes, they have established a national identity and they almost always intermarry amongst each other and they limit immigration because they don't want too many outsiders coming in. Okay, fine. But if you look at the history of the Japanese people, and if you look at the genetic makeup of the Japanese people, what you'll find is that they were very intermixed, and there was a lot of intermixture that went on in ancient Japan. You had intermixture of, you have Chinese people who came into Japan intermixed. You had Korean people. The royal family in Japan are the descendants of Koreans. This is a known fact that's not talked about a lot, but it's just, it is what it is. In fact, National Geographic, they wanted to look at the royal graveyard in Japan. They have a royal graveyard where all the ancient kings of Japan have been buried. And these are graves that go back millennia. It's very ancient stuff. And for years, National Geographic wanted to send a team of researchers into that tombstone to look at the graves of the ancient kings. And for years, the Japanese said, no. Well, why? Because they don't really want to get into the Korean roots of Japan. They don't like talking about that. They want everyone to think that they came from the vagina of the great sun goddess Amitarasu, whatever her name was. But the reality is that everyone comes from somewhere, and everyone comes from a mix of different people. But anyway, eventually Japan did give National Geographic the permission to look at the tombs. But National Geographic was told by Japan, you can go inside the grave area, the grave site, but you only have a 45 minutes. What? Yeah, you only have 45 minutes. Well, what the hell are you going to do in 45 minutes? You can't do a lot. So they went to the gravestone and the graveyard, and there were these Japanese guys there watching them like a hawk and watching every move they did. And then right when the timer said 45 minutes, they said, got to go, now, out, everybody! And they pushed them out. And so they weren't really able to deduce anything from the research, because 45 minutes is nothing in archaeology, especially when you're looking at something as serious as that. Koreans and Japanese people are related. That's the point. Absolutely. That is my point. They are related. But the Japanese people, they don't like getting too much into that. There was a professor years ago, I forgot his name, but he was a professor. He was an academic who said that the original people, or in ancient times, the Japanese people were descendants of horse roaming people, basically saying that the Japanese were Central Asian nomads. And that professor got ostracized for that. There was a book that was written years ago. Again, the title I do not remember, but I need to find it. And when I find it, I'm going to save it because I keep thinking about this. I'm wondering, man, what was the name of that book? I need to find it. But there was a book years ago that talked about the relation between the Turkic languages and Japanese. And one thing that it said was that there is 100% a relationship between Japanese and Turkic. 100%. And it showed 100% why there was a relationship between the two languages. And it took a sentence from Turkic that said, from Turkish, I think, that said something like, the leaves of fall sail with the wind, or something like that. And it took that line from in the Turkish language, and then it compared it to the same statement but said in Japanese. And it shows how there were words in the Japanese version of the sentence that matched in both meaning and almost pronunciation with the words in the Turkish sentence, showing 100% there's a relationship. But there's definitely a relation. And but there, if you look at the different peoples that lived in Japan thousands of years ago, you'll see they were different peoples. They spoke their own different languages. For example, in northern Japan, ancient northern Japan, the people there were described as being very tall and being very good warriors. Well, if you look at a map, you'll see northern Japan is very close to Russia. Obviously, what happened was the native inhabitants of northern Japan were Scythians or some kind of Slavic people. And then there was just a massive amount of intermixture. Slavs intermixed with Koreans, intermixed with the native Aboriginal population in Japan. What's it called? The Anu. Yeah, the Ainu people. Yeah, there was intermixture with those people. They just all got mixed up. Chinese people got mixed in there. And that's it. I mean, and then they said, okay, well, we all know we're sort of mixed up here. You know, you're taller than me. You're more light-skinned than me. You're more yellow than me. You're a little bit darker than me. We all know we're all sort of mixed up here, but we're all going to agree that we're Japanese. So they establish an identity, an ethnic identity. And that's it. Just like, I think at this point, I really think at this point, American is an ethnicity. I could be wrong. They say it's a nationality. I think at this point, it's we can at least say it's getting close to becoming an ethnicity. Because an ethnic group, because you go to different countries and you can spot an American 50 gazillion miles away. That only happens if you are a particular ethnicity. You are easily recognizable once you are, I'll put it to you this way. Once you are easily recognizable as a particular ethnicity, you are an ethnic group. That's the way I look at things. Like a Jewish person, I could spot a million miles away. I could spot a Jewish person a million miles away. Look at that, that's a Jew, and I'm almost right. Almost right. I'm almost always right. There's been maybe like one time I was wrong, but except for that one time, every single time I was correct. I can look at someone and say that's a Jew. I'm right. I could look at somebody and say that's a Middle Eastern person. I'm right. I could look at someone and say that's a Mexican. I'm right. Even if it's a white Mexican, I could tell them. I could tell a white Mexican a million miles away. That's a Mexican. That's a fresa. I call them fresas. Fresa is a Spanish word. It means strawberry. In Mexico, the snobby, more European Mexicans are called fresas. It's a big insult over there. But when I was in Mexico, they would say it all the time. Oh, fresas, fresa, fresa, fresa. I called a girl that one time, and she got very upset with me. You could spot. I think if you can spot someone a million miles away, I think that that's an ethnicity. And when I was in Italy, I could spot Americans a million miles away. It's come to the point where you could say, well, there's African Americans and there's white Americans. It has come to the point where I can look at a black guy and I could say that dude is from Africa. That guy's not even American. I could just tell them. It's the way they look. It's the way they walk. It's just everything. American comes with a way of walking. It comes with a cadence. It comes with a gait. It comes with just a lot of different things. You know, the way they talk, the way they eat, the physical mannerisms. All these things come with an ethnic group. And again, when I was living in Italy, I could spot Americans like that. I could look at it's an American. Well, we're all white here. Yeah, Italians can be white. Yes, absolutely. Americans are, for the most part, white. Yes, but there's a difference culturally, physically. There's a difference. How they look, how they carry themselves, everything. And yeah, and even if you're, let's say, even if you are a Middle Eastern American, let's say you're Middle Eastern, your parents were Middle Eastern, but you were born in the United States, there are certain aspects about you that are going to be American.